How's everybody doing? Tinkering with Harleys. I want to thank all of you who have subscribed, and if you're watching these videos and enjoying them, by all means, please subscribe. Well, we're continuing work on Sportster that we got in here to go over, and this Sportster keeps on surprising me. We got the new motor mount in the last video, and the ignition was right inside the motor mount, and it was an aftermarket ignition. So we also got a new tank for it, and as you can see behind me, we did a mock-up on the bike, and the tank fits just fine, and that's going to be going out for paint here shortly. But what we ran into with the ignition switch, it had been moved from the front of the bike to in between the motor mount, and where the bung sticks down and the petcock goes in, there wasn't enough room for the petcock, so we've had to take, and we're going to be moving the ignition back to where it should be up in front, and we're waiting for a part to come in for that so we can get that done. And then we also had the bike in here. I was checking it out. We have tires to put on, and when I jacked the bike up, I spun the rear wheel, and didn't like what I heard coming out of that rear wheel. So what we did was there's a lot of chrome goodies on here. Had to take a lot of stuff off the rear to get to the axle. And when I got to the axle and I loosened up the nut, loosened up the adjusters, tried to slide the wheel forward, the wheel wouldn't slide forward. Which told me there's a big problem. And then we tried to tap the axle out, and the axle would not come out. But I'll show you what was going on here. Whoever owned this bike before, they put this nice chrome pulley on there. And I mean, it looks really good. You can see the new tires on there. But if you look down in here, you can see all the rust in the bearing. So what they did was they took the old pulley off, so they had to pull the axle out and the spacers, and they installed the new pulley. And when they did, they took and they wiped all the grease off the old axle, and they put it all back together. And they didn't torque the axle to specs. They actually bent the spacer that's on the axle. So when I broke loose the axle nut, I took the axle nut off, and this is what I got. I don't know if you can see it, but that's just bent. So the axle was on there way too tight. I had to take a 3-foot breaker bar to break loose the axle. And then after I got the axle loose, the axle nut loose, I went to remove it the way you normally remove an axle, and it just wouldn't budge. So I wound up having to heat the spacers in order to break this thing loose. Now, I had a hunch that they had not greased or put anti-seize on the axle at all when they installed it. And after heating it, I was able to get the axle out of the wheel. And this is what we got. This is what the axle looked like that we took out. And this thing is just solid rust. And you can see right here where it rode on the bearing, and here, it was just rusted into the bearings. So consequently, the bearings are shot. The axle is no good. This is junk. So what we've done, we've ordered new axle, new bearings, new spacer for the bearings. new outside spacers because I heated them up and I don't want to use them again. And so the bearings have to be replaced, and it's a shame because this bike only has 6,000 miles on it, and the bearings should nowhere near need to be replaced yet. But because somebody installed this improperly, this is what happens. And when you don't consult a service manual, I mean, if you're not knowing exactly what you're doing, I can't stress enough about having a service manual to tell you how to do this. But this axle was completely wiped clean, everything rusted to it, so it ruined everything inside the wheel. So like I said, we have everything on order, and what we're going to do today is we're going to remove those the bearings from the wheel. So we'll get to that, and we'll remove the axle, or we'll remove the bearings from the wheel. We'll get that done while we're waiting for parts to come in because I don't have the parts. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll get right to it. Okay, we're ready to pull this bearing out. Now I've already pulled the other side. And here's the other side. And if you could see in here, this is all solid rust. And the bearing itself is shot. This bike wasn't ridden very much after he pulled that axle out. So what we're going to do, and I'm using a tool, I used to do this the old way. And this is the first time using this tool, so we'll see how this goes. It went okay on the other side. What you do, this is the extractor. You push it in there. There we go. And you push it in till it clicks. That way, you know, you got the back of the bearing. Then you put this bridge on there. Now you have to take and take the pulley off to use this. Let's see, where is everything? Okay. And then you put this brass washer on here. And then you put this nut on. And you put a little bit of oil on the threads. I used Marvel Mystery Oil. Just like that. And you just hold the bridge. What are you doing, Muggs? Helping me out? Muggs likes to work on motorcycles. He likes it when we're doing stuff. And you do this finger tight, making sure that it's right here on where the pulley bolts in. And you do that finger tight. Then you take, come on, get out of the way there, buddy. Get out of the way. This is the expander. This goes in the other side. Come on, Muggs. Yeah, I know you want to help me, but come on, buddy, out of the way. Thank you. You take it, the expander, and you shove it through there like that. This is the first time using this tool. I used to do it the old way, but these new bearings these seal bearings are a lot harder to get out, knocking them out. So what we're trying to do, is find an easier way than what we used to do. I don't want to go through there at all. And that's because I'm not lined up. And we get it lined up some. Make sure we're in the frame. There we go. Okay, and now you take, now that that's through, you take that expander and push it through, and then you put this nut and washer on it. And then you tighten it up so it expands the puller. That should do it. And now you take your wrench and you put it on that big nut and you give it a turn. But the trick is you have to hold this on the other side. Okay, and then you start to tighten it. And it should pull the bearing out, which it's doing. I can see it coming out. And that should do it. There it is. There's the bearing. Now we'll get this stuff off of here. Get that one off. Get that out, and there's the bearing. There's the bearing. And this one is all rusted inside also. Now we'll take a look inside here. We'll get a light. We'll just get this cleaned up real well. So that's going to do it for today. And from me and Muggs, thanks for watching, and everybody be safe out there.